So my name is David Ivey. I'm the student pastor at Polaris, and I have been on staff for 18 years. And today, we are going to talk about a topic that I can't say I'm the expert at, but I know a lot about: teenagers. I have been on staff for a long time. Before that, I was helping youth ministry as a volunteer here, and actually volunteered at youth ministries in college. You can probably say, for the most part, I've dedicated my life to ministering to teenagers. For many pastors, student ministry, teenagers, youth groups are usually the stepping stone. They see that ministry as the thing they have to do to get to the big chair. I've never seen youth ministry in that light. Teenagers and having active teenagers in a church is a vital sign that your church is healthy. And I am honored that we have an amazing group of students, which you saw stampede out here at Polaris. This message isn't for just parents of teenagers. This message is for people who have young kids who will become teenagers. Believe it or not, they'll be teenagers before you know it. We have a 13-year-old, my wife Jacqueline, and I have a 13-year-old, his name's Liam. And he's a middle schooler now, and I can't believe he's 13. It makes me feel super old. But whether you have kids or you don't, having spiritually healthy teenagers is vital, not just to a church, but to a community. We have a saying here at Polaris that how we treat children is how we treat Jesus. And most of us think children, we think the little ones. But teenagers are still children. And so for me, it's how we treat teenagers is how we treat Jesus. The world has a tendency to take teens and set them aside. Look down on them. Lots of judgment. But in reality, they are very precious. In reality, they can do amazing things. They're not the future of the church. They are the church. But they are facing some major crisis in their lives. And we are going to spend some time in our message looking at 3 challenges that they face. But before we get there, kind of to set the tone, teenagers are teenagers and always have been. Yes, context maybe has changed in society, but they're still teenagers. So everyone in this room, at one point, you were a middle schooler, a 6th through 8th grader. The nightmare of awkwardness, where you're the oddest you'll ever be, where you're the meanest you'll ever be, and the smelliest. That's still the same today. Everyone in this room, high school student, 9th through 12th grader at some point, where you felt you knew everything, and you felt life can't get harder. And if you get to adulthood, just get there. Easy street. That's still the same today. It's funny when I talk to students who are, now young adults, they'll look at our teenagers and go, our generation was never like that. And I'm like, oh, yes, you were. Sometimes worse. You have a teenager at home, they're starving and striving and wanting independence at the same time. They also don't want to go the wrong direction. They constantly are worried of what's going to happen next. And they want advice from everyone but you. If you're a parent of a teenager, you can tell them the same thing 1,000 times, and someone else outside the household will tell them the exact same thing. And they go, you'll never believe what I learned today. And you're like, well, I've been just telling you that for a decade. They're all over the place mentally, personally, spiritually. Makes it a bit of a challenge at times when you have to speak to a room full of them. But no matter what the age is, whether high school or middle school, no matter their spiritual maturity or not, I believe there are 3 major challenges they face: mental health, pressure to conform, and trying to find their purpose. And I believe that the church is uniquely equipped to help them face each one of those challenges. Before we get to the challenges, we have to understand that we're not fighting a battle of flesh and blood. We are fighting a supernatural battle. Yes, the devil is real. Satan is a real thing. And he wants to derail your teenager, derail every teenager, every child, as soon as they can, because he knows that if they can stop a teenager from being relevant with Jesus, then their young adulthood, that he can just take whatever he wants from them. Ephesians chapter 6 tells us this: our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. That's what Paul's saying. Listen, there is a battle that is being fought for your teenagers, the teenagers in our world, for a reason. And Satan understands if he can distract, if he can put up a wall between a generation and God, then he thinks he's winning. Lifeway research tells us that 7 out of 10 teenagers, 70%, that went to church or went to a youth group growing up will leave the church between the ages of 18 and 22. The reasons are stacked up and they're everywhere. The enemy loves this. If you have a teenager that doesn't want to go to church or doesn't want to go to a youth group, they will fight you every way they can. They will make excuses why they don't want to go. I don't have friends. I don't know anybody. I feel awkward there, whatever it may be. And Satan understands two things. That if your teenager's faith hinges on my parents take me to church, or that church is optional, then they will walk away from God when they leave your house. That's why at SMT I have a saying, our teenagers probably get nauseated hearing me say it, but I said, this is no longer mommy and daddy's faith. This has to be yours. And if you don't make a priority to love and be a part of Christian community as a teenager, you definitely won't make that priority when you're a young adult. And then there's the sin issue. We are living in a generation that is being told that nothing is wrong, that there is no concrete right and wrong, that is all just perspective. The idea that you have to own your own truth makes truth ever changing. And if truth is ever changing, then how can you ever do anything that's going to be wrong? And that perspective has moved a generation that justifies everything. They don't want to feel that they're wrong. They don't want to feel that sin is an ugly word. They don't want to admit they've fallen short. And yet Paul tells us in Romans 3, he says, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came through Christ Jesus. And Paul's saying, says, listen, we are all sinners. Every one of us. But that's not where the story ends. We have redemption through Jesus. But if there is no truth, if there's no wrong, you don't need Jesus. You don't need church if everything's just perspective. And the enemy wants a generation to believe this. And sure, we can do what we want. We have free will. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 6, is I have the right to do anything that you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. Jesus knows what is good for our lives and the good for the lives of our students. And the enemy is doing all he can to derail, because like I said, if he can take out a teenager, he will run rampant in their 20s. And that's why these 3 major challenges that they face are so important. And these 3 major challenges I feel the church is uniquely equipped to face. The first challenge of mental health. Mental health is a huge challenge for teenagers. Teenagers face an unprecedented level of anxiety and depression. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, 50% of lifetime mental illness begins at 14. 40% of high school students will say that they have had persistent feeling of sadness and hopelessness over this past year. About 15.4% of adolescents between 12 and 17 have major depressive episodes at least once a year. 53% of female students report a persistent feeling of hopelessness, where 28% of men feel that way. Females are more likely to attempt suicide. 20% of high school students have considered it. Teenagers are in a mental health crisis. And really the biggest reason is that this world has taken away their hope. When you don't have hope, you have nothing to live for. And the world is constantly telling a generation, bombarding them with saying, if your hope can just rely on relationships, your hope is in stuff, is in likes, it's an influence, and all that is hollow. All that falls from the wayside. But the church is uniquely equipped, because we tell students there is hope. There is hope no matter what they go through. There's hope no matter what they struggle with. In fact, what I love about what I do as a minister is I love that we have kids who come to our group and question. I want them to wrestle and struggle with their faith. I love it when a teenager will say, hey, I have a question about this Bible verse, or I have a question about God. The church is here to answer and help those questions. And the problem is a lot of people feel that you can't ask questions of God, like we're going to hurt God's feelings. Well, you can't hurt God's feelings. That's not how he works. He wants you to ask those questions. He wants you to grow. And I'm a believer, if you're asking questions, you're growing your faith. And Polaris is a safe place for your student, for your kid, for you to ask those questions. There's also the side of things where sometimes you need more help than just spiritual guidance. We partner with Emerge Counseling in Akron. Sometimes counseling is important. Sometimes you need something more. And I'm a believer, if your child needs counseling, go find it and find a Christian counselor. Because there's one thing of having counseling, and that's great, but having a Christian counselor will back everything up in the healing when it comes to Jesus. But everything starts with our mind. Paul puts it this way in Philippians 4. Brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Paul says that there's an importance between the mind and our faith. The mind and what we do in this world, our mind is huge. And so when we focus and reflect on the things that are good and healthy and admirable, it leads to things. I tell students, what you have that goes in here will hit your heart, and eventually that heart will turn into actions. If you are not intentionally making sure that your child and teenager is engaging with God on a weekly basis, they are at risk. And that's why we put SMT in the middle of the week. We want it at Wednesday night because it's a built-in pause. Where every kid goes through their, the school stuff, the pressures of that, the relational side of stuff. We have SMT for an hour and 40 minutes once a week so your teenager can stop and breathe. But the world doesn't want that to happen. I've seen teenagers who go all in, who are very consistent, and I see life change. Then I see students that push away. They feel isolated. They isolate themselves. They feel like they've missed too many days, that maybe that they're just not, they feel awkward coming back, whatever it may be. And then their faith weakens. And one of those biggest things that happens, and this isn't to hammer home anything negative per se, but sports get in the way. Hear me out, I'm a former athlete. I wrestled in high school, I played football in college. I understand what it takes to be an athlete at a high level. My son plays football, he plays hockey, and he plays baseball. Almost every month there's an opportunity for him to miss church or SMT for all kinds of reasons, for another game or another practice. You have a job to make sure that your student, your teenager, your child is connecting to God. And sometimes the best thing to do is don't go to that practice. It's easy to add another sport. It's easy to add another thing, but is it healthy? Every athlete has one thing in common. They have an expiration date. Eventually, you're not going to be able to play that sport. What doesn't have an expiration date is your eternity. If your kid has the elite height, strength, and speed and ability, the colleges will find them. Don't miss the opportunity for them to be more. They can miss a practice. They can miss a tournament. They can miss a game. I've seen teenagers who have a ton of athletic talent quit their sport before their senior year because they're burnt out. They're mentally burnt out. All they've done is this one thing, and they just don't want to do anymore. I've seen students who have done the same sport for their whole lives be miserable during a season because they don't want to let down their parents. They don't want to let down their other teammates. They don't want to let down their coaches. And when they do actually make a decision and step away from it, they feel pressure from the people that they've let them down or they're hurting their teams. In reality, that's just not how it is. And this all leads back to this mental health thing. If we're not making Jesus a priority for our teenagers, man, we're letting them down. The mental health challenge is real. But Jesus has equipped the church to help with that. The other big challenge that teenagers face is the pressure to conform. Now, this isn't a teenage thing. We're all pressured to conform in some way, but social media has turned this up to 11. It fuels the comparison battle. There's a ton of bullying that's seen and unseen. The desire to conform to a standard that they're not really supposed to conform to. It's not just, like I said, not just a teenage thing. There's plenty of us in this room who go through social media and we feel the same thing. Everyone wants to be liked. No one wants to be an outsider. And to be honest, like I said, this generation is really feeling it. There are studies all over the place that are showing that social media is a cause for high mental anxiety and leads to depression in teenagers. And if you're allowing your teenager to go unchecked on social media, it is a landmine. Not when, but if it's going to explode. And this isn't social media is evil. It's just reality. Remember, middle school kids, the meanest they're ever going to be, right? Add social media to that, and it's really, really rough. Funny story, I drop my son off at school every week and every day, and I love it. I love that I get to do that. And in the fall, I was sitting in the car, we're kind of watching all the kids come in at Claggett Middle School, and I start laughing. I said, that's interesting, Liam. He goes, well, I said, all teenagers ever said they want to be their own person. They want to be their own person. I think I counted like 70 pairs of the exact same shoes. And the exact same whole get up. And he's like, oh yeah, that's what we do. I'm like, I know, it's just kind of funny to me that, they're so quick to want to be their own person, but yet so quick to conform. We want a generation of teenagers to be something special. We have to help them fight the conformity. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed, once again, by the renewing of our minds. And then you'll be able to test and approve God's will as his good, pleasing, and perfect will. That connection between mind and spiritual growth, it's so evident. And when our minds are transformed, God transforms us inside. Conformity leads to emptiness and a thirst that can never be quenched. There's always going to be the next thing. There's always going to be the next fad. There's always going to be the next thing to want. But through Jesus, we can have this fulfillment. 1 Peter tells us this. In 1 Peter chapter 1, therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, let your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed in his coming. As obedient children, obedient teenagers, do not conform to the evil desires that you have had in living in arrogance. But just as he who called you holy, so be holy in all that you do. For it is written, be holy because I am holy. Peter, once again, links minds and actions. The church is uniquely equipped to help your student navigate this, help your child navigate this, help yourself navigate this. When you come to Polaris, just come as you are. We don't want you to put a mask on. We don't want you to pretend something you're not, because that's you can't help somebody. I sat down with a student a couple weeks ago, and I could tell he was struggling. And I said, hey, can I just ask you a question? Can you be real with me? What do you mean? It's like, can you just stop pretending and just be you? I need to see you. If I can see you, I can guide you. But if you're coming in here just pretending to be something you're not, you're never going to find healing. And it kind of clicked something in him. Come as you are. I would rather have a student come in and be them and just be a mess of a person so I can see that than someone who's trying to pretend to be something else. And that's the beauty of SMT, beauty of Polaris Christian Church. We don't want you to be anyone else but you. So God can meet you where you're at. The pressure to conform is real. But Jesus has equipped the church to face this. The last challenge in an ever-shifting culture, teens and humans struggle to define who they are and what their purpose is. Oftentimes, trapped between that childhood experience and expression and that premature adult responsibilities. Everyone in this room wants a purpose. The Old Testament tells us in Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper, not to harm. Plans to give you hope and a future. Old Testament said God's got a plan for you. God planned for your teenager. Ephesians chapter 2:10 says that we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, that God has prepared in advance for you. God has something for you. He has prepared you to do something. And then Paul doubles down in 1 Corinthians and tells us we actually have that built into us. And 1 Corinthians 12 says this, there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but all of them and everyone, the same God at work. Now, to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. So Paul's saying, listen, we are hardwired by God to go do something. We are made on purpose for a purpose. So God has equipped the church to help us with that. Because this is the training ground. I love it that at Polaris Christian Church, you can go through the back of these classrooms in first service because we want to protect second service so our students can go to SMT, and they're serving. I love it when I get to see a teenager hanging out in a nursery or hanging back there. I had a student once, and he'll remain nameless. He was asked to serve at Polaris Kids, and he was embarrassed because his first assignment was to take kids to the bathroom. And he had a little kid, like, can you go in with me? He's like, what? No? What do I do? And go in with him, man, you're good. He's like, I never want to do this again. And he kept on showing up. He was great. And he realized that maybe God hasn't equipped him for kids. That's good. This is where it's at. This is where you try things out. Whether it's back there with Polaris Kids helping do worship with our SMT worship on here, find a place to serve. I will tell students who graduate to go off to young adulthood, you want to actually continue your faith, you got to connect through service. You got to find a church to serve at. I will encourage parents, serve. Serve as a family. Make sure you have your child in something to serve because they have something to give. God's put this amazing thing in each one of them as a gift, and how selfish is it of us to hold that gift and not share it. Go and serve. That's where we find our purpose. Yes, there's a purpose crisis, but God has equipped the church to handle that. Mental health, pressure to conform, trying to find a purpose. Things that teens face every day. So what do we do about it? If you have a teenager at home, or will have a teenager at home, or have a granddaughter or grandson or niece or nephew, you've got to stop making church a negotiable. You've got to connect them to Jesus. For some of us, that means we have to stop making excuses. We have to stop making excuses for our teenagers. So I have one at home, and my poor wife has to make sure he gets here sometimes without me because I'm already here. She understands how hard it is to make sure that is our priority, to make sure he's up and at him and ready to roll. The hassle is real, but man, the what if we don't, no one will. there is an eternal consequence on the line. We are asked to do this for our generations. I had a Malone professor at Malone University once say it this way. He kind of had all of this in a classroom. He said, okay, raise your hand if you had to eat vegetables as a kid. And of course, everyone's hands went up. It's okay. Now, who here wanted to eat those vegetables? No, most of the hands went down, except for some healthy young ladies in the back of the room. And he said, and I can remember the professor to this day. He says, that's how our faith sometimes has to work. Sometimes we just got to get there. Sometimes we got to eat the vegetable. And it's the same thing with your kids. The teenagers church needs to be a priority, because if it is not a priority now, it will not be a priority when they're adults. Joshua says this in Joshua 24. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites, in those lands that you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Choose this day who your teenager is going to serve. Is it going to be the sport world? Is it going to be the education world? Is it going to be the world? Because all that leads to heartache and junk and disappointment. Or is it going to be something that's lasting, that can guide them and make sure they can face every challenge they see? Teenagers need us, not just parents, but the community, the church community, to back them up and point them towards Jesus. If you don't, no one else will. And we need to be on our knees praying for our kids. We need to be constantly praying for this generation, because they need Jesus. James chapter 4 tells us this. Submit yourself then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your heart. You double-minded, grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter in the morning, your joy in the gloom. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Humble yourself to know that you, each one of you, are here to help a generation of teenagers know. And know that the devil may be coming, and he may want to destroy everything that God's got planned, but we can help with that. The church is uniquely equipped to help kids navigate their challenges. If on a side note, if you would love to talk to me about SMT and what we do, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you want to know more, you can also, all my stuff's on the app. You can find my connection stuff. But I really encourage you, everyone in this room, stop looking at teenagers as just, they're going to grow out of this phase, whatever, and start seeing them as people that Jesus is equipped to do great things. And those challenges that are real, that God is there for them and wants to be with them, and you can help cultivate them and make the church stronger. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for these opportunities you give us to be present with a generation that needs you. We have a generation of students that are the most connected that has any other human has been in the history of our world, and yet they feel so far away from people. We have a generation of students that are absolutely struggling with mental health, a desire to conform, and a purpose. God, help us be the generation that raises students for you. That it's no longer if we have time for you, Lord, but that you are a priority. Because when we make you the priority, as teenagers change into adults, their lives are better and they are stronger for it. We pray this in your son's name. Amen.